Hello.
Hello.
Somebody else entered the meeting on a different code and it all went a bit pear-shaped. We've got a duplicate code going on that we can't figure out, so depending which one you enter on, it kind of blocks the other a bit.
It was on the one that you know the instructions you sent out.
Yeah.
In the email.
Yeah. So we need to find Sarah again, don't we? So
But Sarah gone as well?
She's back. I'll get her. Right, hopefully we have Sarah. Yay! And with a bit of luck, we've got another co-host coming up. Is that? That's Devs. On mute. Brilliant. So we're all here. I've been having technical difficulties, everything jammed on my computer, so I'm just going to try and reload Sue Saunders' welcome speech. Is anybody else able to? So let me co-host you now. Right, so that's Michelle, and that's Sarah. So hopefully you've now got, you're able to control stuff. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
Depends what we're controlling, I don't know.
It's fine. I think, Mish, as long as there is backup with the internet if things fail, it'll just get confusing if everybody's... So, did you get a chance to look at the running order, Sarah, and...
No, but I'm going to have it up on my other screen. Does that count?
Absolutely fabulous. So I'm just going to try loading Sue Saunders. Is it anybody able to see if they can get that Google Docs in the chat for me? Or have we not started?
What Google Doc where?
Otherwise I'll have a go.
I've got it, Sarah.
Okay.
When do you want it in?
As soon as we're done, if we put it sort of, if it's there waiting for people as we join, it should be fine, doesn't it? We can just say,
okay,
counting the past program for the day, and I've got 4 people in the.
If you guys want to check it's working.
Yes, good call.
Yeah, I can do that.
Check the right document.
Yeah, it's open for me. It's the one that says Stockport Libraries are delighted to welcome the Out in the Past Festival to Stockport. Yeah.
And then there's a programme of events. It's just an
yes, programme, welcome and introduction. Yeah, that looks good.
That is absolutely fabulous. Right, so I need to get Sue Saunders' welcome up, loaded, which is, let me do that now.
There's some people waiting in the should I admit that, Trudy?
Yes, yeah, she's one of ours, and Veronica is as well.
No, there's a David Austin, Dominic, Kate Hutchinson.
Yeah, I think they're just general. Oh, it's 1:45.
Where can you see that?
If you click participants.
Hang on. Oh, yeah.
I'm Nichols, and I have the pleasure of being the Chair of Trustees for Schools Out UK. I'm here today with Sue Sanders.
About your video.
About LGBT.
It is.
So,
ignore me, it's all gone wrong.
Well, thank you.
Do you have to share your screen?
Well, I'm just trying to load it at the moment, ready to share. So
I was going to say, do you want to have a practice now, maybe?
I'm fine once I've got it loaded. As I said, everything died on me, so I'm just having to reload everything, which is joyous.
Can you put the link to it in the chat, not in the main
It's
chat?
all right. It's all right, Misha, I can do it.
I just thought if your
to a point, right.
I just thought if your technology
I'm-
went off, if you put that in our own private
It's
chat.
already in the, yeah, it's all in the running order that I sent to everybody last night.
Hello.
On that Word document, all the links are on there.
Okay.
So,
Hi.
Good morning, well, afternoon, Trudy. It feels like only moments since we last saw your loveliness.
Such a lovely gig. I've had loads of people sending me emails and tweets, and it's really nice.
Oh yeah, it had a really warm, cuddly feeling to it, didn't it? It was a
And
lovely
my
evening.
poet friends absolutely loved it. Greece sent me, I've had messages from them saying how much they enjoyed it. Yeah, it's got to be fun, doesn't it? These events. We're also fed up with COVID.
Indeed we are. So we're just going to start letting people in, if that's all right. Is there any last minute thoughts for us, or are you?
Hello, everybody. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Trudy.
Hello. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. And here's Sarah. Hello, Sarah.
Yeah. You're on mute, darling.
Oh, sorry.
No, Sarah is on mute.
Oh, mute. Hello, Sarah. We can't hear you.
Usually my trick, that.
Yeah, I'm on mute because my kids are watching cartoons in the background. So sorry.
So Sarah and Debs, who is down as plus admin, are going to be running the chat, and they're our background. Michelle is along as a backup if we should need it with our internet or anything.
Okay, so there is going to be a chat as with the.
This is slightly different. After
Okay.
you've done your presentation, there is the option for people to ask questions.
Okay.
So Sarah and Debs, who's down as plus admin, are fielding those questions, and Sarah's going to be asking them.
Okay. Oh, great. Oh, great, Sarah.
Do you want me to let them all in now?
Yes, please. I think we're as good as we're getting.
Which is excellent. Hopefully, but you never know.
Hello, welcome. I'm Lynn Nichols, and I've the pleasure of being the Chair of Trustees for Schools Out UK. I'm here today with Sue Sanders.
Ellie, do you want me to put some slides up?
I had a slide that I wanted to share. Now, where is it?
Hi, I've just dropped in. I sent an email earlier. Sue Sanders can't make it today. I don't know if you're aware. I'm here instead of Sue.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, you okay? Oh yeah, Sue's had a full-on time at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
History Month.
so I'm sort of the last minute Schools Out committee member going to jump in.
Good for you. Welcome.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you for that. That is wonderful. So we offered Sue the option just to say something at the beginning. So are you happy to do that?
I could do, but it'd be very, very short. It'll just be a a hello.
That's fine. And I have got Sue's Welcome to LGBT History Month loaded up as well. That's only 2 minutes.
Do you want me to sort of introduce that then? I could just say I'm so and so.
That would be most lovely. So would you like to be introduced as Kate?
Yes, that's fine. And yeah, I can just sort of I can expand on who I am and then what we do and everything.
Yes,
else.
you need to say what your role is, what you do within the organisation.
Yeah, that's no problem. That's
Great.
fine. I'll just go back on mute. You let me know when you need me.
So good morning and welcome to everybody. We are gradually letting people in, so if we can just be patient for a moment longer, then we will have everybody together in one wonderful space, and we can welcome people and start the proceedings.
Oh, hi everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I just realised I was muted. I was saying hello and no one could hear me.
Ah,
That always adds excitement to the day.
So I'm going to show a short video. Is that okay?
Sorry, your internet flickered for a moment. We didn't quite hear the sentence.
Oh, I was going to show a short video about the project and then go into a PowerPoint.
That is absolutely fine. Yes.
Okay.
So I'll just.
I'm making birthday cards as we're waiting. Being creative.
Yay. So slight
No.
apologies. All my internet died just before we started this meeting. So I am frantically reloading all of the different parts of our event. I am Shelley from Stockport Libraries, and I am a part of Stockport LGBT History Month. We have got the lovely Sarah, who will be our co-host for today. And we have got also the wonderful Debs, who is listed as plus admin on her screen. After we have had our presentations today, there is the option for people to ask questions as we go along in the chat. So please do that and join in conversation with us as we go along, and we will welcome those questions. And at the end of each presentation, we will be asking those questions and getting answers from our presenters. So we have a wonderful program today. We will be starting with Veronica Mckenzie from the Haringey Vanguard project, and we will then be moving along to Dr. Abtin Sadeghi. That presentation is a video recording, so we won't have the option for questions with that. We will be then completing with our LGBT plus poet laureate, Trudy Hutchinson. So that's our order for the day. And again, with Trudy, she is very open to questions. So as we go along, if you can post those questions in the chat, then after she's finished speaking, we will be answering as many questions as we possibly can in an entertaining and interesting way. So I would like to welcome everybody to our Outing the Past Festival. This is Stockport's 4th year hosting it, and we are delighted and honoured to be a hub for Outing the Past. We have Kate Hutchinson is here to just share a little bit more with us and welcome us to our festival today.
Hi everyone, my name's Kate. Yeah, oh, there I go, I'm spotlighted. Okay, yeah, I'm part of the Schools Out committee. Schools Out, if you're Schools Out UK, we are the organisation that really sort of brought LGBT History Month to the UK, and worked with Out in the Past to create this festival every single year. Normally this time of year, I would be out and about running around doing talks, all around the UK. It's a bit of a challenging year, isn't it? It's a bit of a different, a different way of, we're all adapting and trying to deliver in the best way we possibly can. But it's fantastic to see so many great events around the UK still this year, no matter what. COVID hasn't stopped the fact that we're all coming out to share our stories, our histories. You know, there's stories and histories that for so many years were hidden, were pushed away, were buried even in some cases. And it's so important that these voices, these stories, these histories carry on, you know, being heard. So now I'm going to actually hand you over to our chair, to Sue, who we've got on video, because unfortunately, originally Sue was going to be here with you today. She couldn't make it, so they've sent me along instead. Sorry. But here is Sue telling you a little bit more about our organisation.
And one thing I should have said before we started is that we are recording today's event. So if anybody would rather have their face not be on the recording, then please can you press your stop video button, and that will mean that you will not be seen on the recording. So onwards and to the wonderful Sue and her welcome, we hope.
Hello, welcome. I'm Lynn Nichols and I have the pleasure of being the Chair of Trustees for Schools Out UK. I'm here today with Sue Sanders to talk about LGBT History Month. Sue, would you like to tell us a bit more about it?
Well, thank you, Lynn, and thanks for being the Chair of Trustees. You've been doing amazing work to get us together. Paul, Patrick and I kicked off LGBT History Month back in 2004. Both teachers, both passionate about LGBT issues, and we were sick and tired of what we had gone through the last 15 years of Section 28. And for those of you who don't know about Section 28, I'm thrilled. And for those of you who do, you know just how dreadful it was. And we really wanted to change the atmosphere around LGBT people and celebrate us. We had been victims for 15 years and gone through hell. So we had the example of Black History Month. So people had a concept of what a History Month might be. So we utilized that and we came up with the idea of having an LGBT History Month. We chose February because it had a half term. And we thought that, well, maybe libraries and museums might pick it up, and then teachers and parents might go into those and see something celebrating LGBT History Month, which would give them the confidence to take it back into schools, because schools had really hidden this. The other thing was that we really wanted businesses to be involved, because it was really important that businesses began to value their LGBT employers and also their customers. Because if customers saw that that the companies were looking after LGBT people, they would be more likely to use that company. So, and that's happened, I have to say, over the years, and we're now, some way on, LGBT History Month has become something which most local authorities and other people, it must be said, wouldn't dream of not doing something in February.
So, a big thank you to Sue Saunders there for her welcome to LGBT History Month. This year, as I'm sure most of us are aware, it's on the theme of body, mind and spirit, which covers so many things. I am delighted to welcome our first speaker to the proceedings. So welcome, Veronica Mckenzie. Do you prefer V?
Veronica's fine, yeah. V, because I was lazy.
Yes, so we are really looking forward to hearing your presentation. So over to you and thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for inviting me, Stockport. It's been a lot of people have said, it's been a really difficult time, but it's great to have these events happening online, and that means that they're more accessible. So I'm from Haringey Vanguard, which is a BAME LGBTQ history project based in London. So I'm just going to show you a short film about the project, and then I'll talk a little bit more about what we do and how we work with archives. So I'm just going to do the dreaded share screen. Let's have a look. And then...
My name
This is Veronica Mckenzie. I'm the Community Engagement Lead for Haringey Vanguard. Haringey Vanguard is a BME LGBTQ history project. It was a 2-year project funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, working in partnership with the London Metropolitan Archives and Bruce Castle Museum. We collected over 40 oral histories from activists from the 1970s to 1990s. We also collected flyers, ephemera leaflets, which were brought to the LMA here, catalogued, conserved and digitised. And that will form part of the collection that goes to Bruce Castle Museum, and that will be the permanent home. Haringey Vanguard came about because I've been doing some research into BME LGBTQ history and speaking to activists who were around in the 70s to the 90s. And I realised that a lot of the stuff came out of Haringey in terms of the political actions, in terms of the progress that was made around LGBTQ policies. And I felt like this really needed to be catalogued and preserved.
I'm Julie Melrose. I'm the archivist at Bruce Castle Museum and Archive here in Haringey. My role here as the archivist for Haringey is to look after the collections that we hold here and make sure that they're as accessible to the public and to researchers as possible.
One of the most important aspects of the Haringey Vanguard project was our community outreach. So we'd meet people at Pride marches, we'd have stalls, we'd run events, and we'd ask them to look at the materials they had at home to see if they had anything that they could donate to the collection. The material that we collected came from a wide variety of sources. So we got materials from club promoters, from activists, from people who lived in Haringey, from people who worked in Haringey, and that makes for a really, really rich archive, which I'm really happy that it's been deposited at Bruce Castle Museum.
The Vanguard collection is fantastic. It has a wide range of items, and they range from flyers, posters, through to badges, t-shirts, banners. Just a real sort of wonderful collection of a very special time in history. Some of my favourite items in the Haringey Vanguard collections are the badges that we have. Badges are a fantastic representation of particular events, of activism, of people's identity. So these two badges, Smash the Backlash and Haringey Against Clause 28, are little visual representations of two very significant protests at the time in the late 80s.
So this is one of my favourite pieces from the Haringey Vanguard collection. It's a flyer that was produced in the 80s, and it says "not another benefit," and that's really important because there were so many benefits happening at that time, and fundraising, and this is for the Black, Lesbian and Gay Centre project. It's interesting because there's an all-female sound system and an all-female vocal group, and this really encapsulates what was happening in the BME LGBT community in the mid-80s.
The people that would be interested in this collection are people that are interested in the subject matter, but also about sort of social history, what was going on in Haringey at the time. So anyone that wanted to access the collection for research is very welcome to come in. We just ask they make an appointment, but we have a search room and we hold the physical collection there of the archives, but we also will have access to the digital collection as well. So the oral histories and the digitised material will be accessible there. If anyone has anything that they'd like to donate to the collection to add to the Haringey Vanguard archive, we'd be very happy to hear from them.
The Haringey Vanguard collection is a living archive, and it's a really important resource for taking a look at BME LGBTQ history in Haringey, but also looking at the wider socio-political movements across the UK at that particular time.
So I'll just stop it there. So just to give you, that was to give you an idea of where we are now. So the project was a 2-year project, and it's just completed yesterday. and we have an exhibition at Bruce Castle Museum, which will be up for the next 3 months. So if anyone can get down to London to have a look at it, it will be up for at least 3 months. So let me just give you a bit of background about the project, how it came into being, and some of our key findings. So I'm going to share the screen again. So basically, around about 2012, 2013, I had been thinking about Black queer history. I came out when I was, very young in Haringey, and I'd been living abroad, and I'd come back to Haringey, and then there wasn't really any kind of sense of documenting what had happened and what had been done, and of all the community groups that were around at the time. So I started kind of investigating that, finding absolutely nothing online. There was no digital presence online at all. So I set about interviewing people in a very informal way. That ended up becoming a documentary called Under Your Nose. And then it became really clear how the isms, sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, how all of these isms distort and impact the depiction of history, because we know that history is written very much by the victors. And if you look at UK history, it's an incomplete story in so many ways. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not inclusive of, BME people, it's not inclusive of trans people, LGBTQ people generally. It's such an incomplete history. And I just wanted to kind of make sure that the representation was a little bit more balanced and a little bit more fair. So like the film said, the Haringey Vanguard covers a range of materials. So it's film footage, ephemera, posters and everything else. And it's based at Bruce Castle Museum in Haringey. The importance of community engagement was probably one of the most important things, because traditionally in marginalised communities, that exchange of information takes place orally. So people talk to each other and people pass on stories. They don't generally write down their histories. They don't generally write down their stories. So it was very important for us to bring young and elders together to share this history and to talk about it, and to get a new perspective on that history as well, because we really want young people to, be interested, be involved, and then start their own research. And Haringey is a very particular part of London that has a very negative perception. When you think of Haringey, most people think of a very deprived inner city area. They also think of the riots that have happened. It's always been quite a controversial borough. But some of the, really positive things about Haringey is that Bernie Grant was the UK's first Black MP, and he was a staunch supporter of equality for LGBT rights, for Black people's rights and Irish communities. And that was going back into the 80s. Haringey Council had one of the first lesbian and gay units in the UK, with 4 full-time members of staff. The Positive Images Manifesto, which really tried to get teaching positive representations of the LGBT community into classrooms, that came out of Haringey, and that led indirectly to Section 28. The Black Lesbian and Gay Centre project, which was the first Black Lesbian and Gay Centre in Europe, certainly, that started in Tottenham. And the Bernie Grant Centre is on the site that the centre occupied. So Haringey has got really rich history in terms of LGBTQ, contribution and participation. And Haringey Vanguard, what we wanted to do is 3 key things. We wanted to reveal that history, collect that history, and share the history. So in revealing, we wanted to reveal BAME LGBTQ history, because this history is often, hidden, or let's not say hidden, but, sidelined. So when we think of history in terms of the UK context, we think of the larger moments in time, and an example is if I said 1960s, some people think of the Beatles and Summer of Love, Other people think about, oh, women getting the pill. Other people think about the race riots. These are all things that happened at the same time. But what gets reported and what gets documented as history is very much seen as being very much through generally a very kind of like white male cis gendered view of what history is, and also very kind of middle class. You know, the middle classes are very concerned with documenting history, so other communities get left out. Key materials that we found and key years: 1981, the Black Gay Group was started in London, and it met at Gays the Word Bookshop. That loads of people know about Gays the Word Bookshop, and it's a fantastic space. Not many people know that that's where the Black Gay Group started, and they used to meet there on a Friday night until they outgrew that space. And then after forming as the Black Gay Group, they changed their name to the Lesbian and Gay Black Group, because more lesbians were going along, so it's being more inclusive. Also that same year, the Black Lesbian Group was formed. And this is particularly interesting because there was a conference called OWAD, which was an Organisation of Women of African and Asian Descent. And it was the second major conference of Black women in the UK. So that was groundbreaking in and of itself. But in 1981, a group of Black lesbians wanted to have a workshop for themselves within the confines of the conference. And the conference basically voted them down. So that you see there was a schism even within this group of Black women about, you know, having lesbians organising within their midst. So they went off and had their own meeting, and out of that came the Black Lesbian Group. So 1981 is a very key year in terms of the beginnings of what you could call a Black queer community in the UK being organised in any sense that we would recognise now. 1983, we started to see Black lesbians and gay men outreach and kind of connect with other people around the world. So Dorothea Smart, who is a world-renowned poet, and her colleague, they started the Black Lesbian Network, self-published, and this booklet was 50 pages of poems, resources, you know, phone numbers for people to meet up or phone each other, support helplines. And that was sent all around the world. So it was sent to women in South Africa, in Europe, in America, in the Caribbean. So then we start to see the beginnings of like a network, which we start to see people kind of coming together in that way. In 1983 also, we started to see the first AIDS cases, but the way it was reported was so racist that it actually led to a rise in homophobia and attacks on Black gay men, which meant that Black gay men were now bearing the brunt of this, and then were forced to kind of organise. And we'll see later that they were forced to, you know, kind of fight back. 1984, 1985, these are two other key years in BME LGBT history, because in 1984, the GLC published Changing the World, which was a charter for LGBTQ rights and equality, a groundbreaking manifesto. Really what they wanted to do was embed LGBTQ rights in every London borough. And by publishing this manifesto, they were saying, we want every London borough to adhere to this manifesto and to have positive images of the LGBT community, and also support through funding, through lesbian and gay units, through you know, lesbian and gay posts in councils. So it was a really big push. Not a lot of people, because when you see this picture, you don't see any BAME representation, but two Black lesbians, Savvy Hensman and Linda Bellas, were instrumental in drafting that policy. And they've been kind of sidelined in all of the kind of media representation. In 1985, much was made of the opening of the London Lesbian and Gay Centre in Cowcross Street. So this was like a massive, massive celebration. It was, I think they got £750,000 to open this centre. It was a 4-storey building. It was in the heart of London, a place for all lesbians and gay men, the LGBT community to go to. The same year, 1985, the Black Lesbian and Gay Centre project was given just enough money to rent a small office in Tottenham. So even though at the time there was a real call for having that space just for, I would say, the BME LGBT community, whilst it was recognised, the amount of funding that they got was so disparate, really. And also, if we look at the London Lesbian and Gay Centre, there were so many problems with that space in terms of who could use it and access it. At one point, bisexual people were barred. At another point, people were practicing S&M, so lesbians wouldn't go. And at one point, there was, so there was so many kind of issues with that space, and it was really difficult trying to have a space that could meet the needs of all of the LGBT community. It was extremely problematic for a lot of the time. In 1985 and 1986, we see more in terms of progress made in LGBT communities by people from the BME communities. So Linda Bellos, being elected Lambeth Borough Council lead, and the Haringey Lesbian and Gay unit set up. And I mentioned positive images with Haringey Council before, and how that in trying to encourage teachers and people in the educational setting to represent LGBTQ people in a positive light led to a massive backlash in Haringey. It led to a group called the Parents' Rights Group organising, and that was an alliance of parents and right-wing people and some religious people and some right-wing Black people. It's like a real mess. And they came together to oppose positive images, and they really agitated for it to be shut down. That led to questions being asked at a local level. It led to questions being asked, 6 o'clock news, Haringey was on the news, and that eventually led to questions being asked in Parliament. And that really kind of stirred up the sentiment to kind of, Section 28, people starting to say, we want to stop this. In 1986, Haringey Black Action organised because of all of this backlash. It was horrendous what was happening in Haringey. So Haringey Black Action was formed to counter all of this. And that was not only LGBTQ people, that was union leaders, teachers, and people working in the education setting, people that were political, but, were on the rights of LGBT communities. So there was like a massive coalition to fight against all of this really dangerous stuff, like shops were firebombed and books were burned. People were, people harassed at work and at their house. People were, it was just a really turbulent time. And these are some other organisations that happened. So in the collection, it really helps to kind of give us more insight into what was really happening at those key moments in Haringey. So it's really about adding another dimension into what we think we know about LGBTQ history by adding in the BAME contribution. One of the things that we face is that people don't believe that their, the artifacts and the magazines and the flyers and stuff that they have, they don't believe that that's valuable. So we had to do a lot of work with people to say, look, just because it's not in a museum, doesn't mean it's not valuable. Like, who decides what's valuable? Who decides, what should be saved and what should be thrown away? And unfortunately, for a lot of people in the LGBT community, when they pass away or move into care facilities, their things are thrown away because people don't think there's any value, and that goes across, and also, like, that families don't know what to do with this material often. They don't think it's any value, they don't want to keep it. Sometimes there's a lot of shame around it, they don't want it. So we had to do a lot of work in talking to people and saying, look, your possessions are valuable and we would love to be able to look after them in the archive, and we will look after them well. You know, so everything's properly catalogued and preserved, like you saw in the video. And like Sue mentioned in her video, Section 28, you know, the run up to Section 28, you know, which was eventually passed in 1988. A lot of the agitation against it at a local level in Haringey, BME LGBTQ people were in the forefront, because the Black Lesbian and Gay Centre was based in Haringey, and they mobilised and they organised, and Haringey Black Action organised and mobilised against it. And here we see that, you know, this organising, you know, went international. So, you know, lesbians and gay men went abroad. You know, they went to Europe. They took their fight abroad to kind of get support, you know, across Europe. You know, say, look at what's happening in England. You know, this cannot be allowed to pass. But unfortunately, it did. We also share the history, but we have face-to-face things. We go to Pride. We go to history events. You know, anywhere where we can kind of meet people and talk about the history and just kind of have the conversation going, really. That's what we do. And our volunteers, who have been amazing, we have had a range of workshops and talks and seminars with them. They've done guest techno training, using a guest techno machine to kind of literally, you know, replicate printing of posters like they did in the 80s. Digitization of history, and this is the work of one of our volunteers on a campaign. So we wanted to have a campaign to talk about loving each other as a radical act and to kind of encompass compassion and kindness, and that was for Pride 2019. And this is one of our volunteers' works, which I think is just brilliant. Like I said, we're funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and the project has just come to completion. Our website is up now, so it went up yesterday. So take a look at the website. I'm just going to stop and come back. So really, I mean, it's been an amazing project to work on. From my perspective, it's kind of really opened my eyes. Particularly working with the younger volunteers and the younger researchers who have got their own, you know, their own perspective on LGBTQ rights, their own perspective on the use of language, their own perspective of, you know, identities, you know, how we talk about all of these things, and we can kind of look at how everything's changed from the 80s, you know, where we used to say Black, meaning, you know, encompassing people from Turkish and Chinese, and Greek, you know, ethnicities would define themselves as being Black in the 80s, right through to now where it's very different. So in terms of the project, I think it's been very valuable experience, and I'm hoping that people will, you know, go online, check out the resources, and if you come down to London, you know, rock up at Bruce Castle Museum. It's a beautiful building, it's a beautiful space, and check out the archive there. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think outing the past is so important because it brings together so many different people from so many communities, and we learn new things about them. So thank you so much for that. I think we have had a couple of questions in the chat. We also last night had a session led by our LGBT plus poet laureate Trudy, and we showed our appreciation by clapping in this way. So if anybody is able to do so at the end of each presenter, then that's a wonderful way of acknowledging all of the hard work that has gone into your presentation, and thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah now, who is looking at the chat and picking up questions to share with you.
Hello, yes, we have had a few questions come through, so I'll just take them in the order that they came through. So at the top of your presentation, you were introducing the project, and Tina Forward asked, "Hi V, are there any projects like this in Stockport or Greater Manchester? Do you know of any other projects doing the same work?"
I think there's a project in Manchester. I think it's run by Chloe Cousins. That's a Black queer project. Young. It's mostly young people. It's called. I think if you look at Chloe Cousins on,
Rainbow Bar.
Do you know it?
Rainbow Bar, yeah, I've heard of her. I've tried to contact her actually about this month, but I think it's just her and she's super busy. So
right, yeah. I think that's the only one I know. I don't know. Like I said, I'm based in London, so I don't know what's happening in your regions. I would hope something will be happening.
So I had a question, then a follow on from that, if I can interject my own. As we don't have a project in Stockport that we're aware of, what tips would you give people who wanted to start a similar project to your own?
I would say that I know that the National Heritage Lottery Fund are really keen to support more LGBTQ+ projects. So I would say if you're really wanting to start a project like this, maybe link up with an institution that's based in your area. For example, I linked up with London Metropolitan Archives, but you can link up with, a museum or an archive or a community group, just some kind of like group that you can, start working with. And I would apply to the Heritage Lottery Fund. They're really serious about giving money to LGBTQ community groups. So I would actually go onto their site, and they have information days as well. So find an information day in your region, go along to that, and they'll tell you about the funding and what you need to do and everything else. And then take it from there. They'll appoint someone to work with you. I made an application, by myself, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So then when I teamed up with LMA, because they'd worked with, the National Heritage Lottery Fund before, and they kind of knew how to shape the application, and then we were successful. So find somebody to work with. But yeah, they really are looking to fund more projects like this, and I think it's much needed. In London it's needed, so I think it'd be more needed outside of London as well.
Fantastic, thanks. So one of the questions during the video, and then again at the end, could we post the link to the project again in the chat? I wasn't quick enough to get it off your final slide.
Oh yes.
So could you post that in the chat for us?
Yes, I keep getting it wrong, so let me just make sure. Put it in. It's just literally launched yesterday, so if I put it in, just make sure it's right. So it's Haringey Black History. I keep getting mixed up. Haringey Queer Black History, that's what it stands for. It's in the chat.
Oh, fantastic. I can see it there. So that's definitely answered a couple of people's questions. And then from Tina, what advice would you give to an organization today setting up an LGBTQ+ center?
Wow.
Not a small question.
Yeah. It depends, because it really does come down to resources. Do you know what I mean? Are you talking about a physical brick and mortar place, centre?
Yep.
So if it's a brick and mortar place, you'd probably need to go to, I would probably think about going to the council and see if they've got any buildings that are underused, and then trying to get maybe a capital grant from a funder to get it kind of up to standard. But the first thing you'd need to do is you'd need to canvass, the local community to see if there's a need. Like, is there a need for this? Is it going to be used? You've done that. Do you have you know, like hundreds of people saying we really want a space. But if you've got a few people saying we really want a space, then I would go to the council and say, look, you know, we are, you know, your taxpayers, your, you know, residents, we want a space that represents us. So I think I would start there. Do you know what I mean? And if you can identify a space that's not been used and say, we know that space has been empty for or underused for a year or 2 years. Do you know what I mean? Kind of.
Yeah. There's loads of support.
Yeah, find a space that's good, you know, that's good for you. Say, you know, we've identified these 2 spaces. We know that they're underused. You know, we've got a community of X amount of people that will use it. You know, they might want you to form into a social enterprise or something like that. You might need to look at the actual, you've done that as well. Okay, right. So, you know, just find a building. Yeah. Find a building and kind of, you know, you have to kind of put pressure on them because they're not going to be thinking of that. If you put pressure on them, you know, and once that's kind of gaining some traction, then you look at getting funds from other councils. Should give you some funding. National Heritage Lottery funding might give you something. Yeah, but yeah, let me know. You know, do it. You know, there's people in London that are wanting to have a space, and I think they did try something in Hackney, and they raised quite a lot of money in Hackney to get a space. But London property prices are just ridiculous. So, you know, yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, put pressure on. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. All right. We've had two further questions, but I noticed we are getting a bit short on time, so we'll just go forward with them, but we'll keep an eye to the clock. So tying in with how you were describing going into Europe and people from England having activism in Europe, you know, fighting Section 28, is how can we support lesbian and gay centres in other countries? So Ghana Lesbian and Gay Centre was raided and closed by police in Accra this week, and the volunteers are now in hiding. Homosexuality is still illegal there, and the media and the church and MPs, they're on a crusade to expose and purge LGBT activism. Yeah. So what can we do here to support people elsewhere?
I think it's really difficult. I think sometimes it comes down to, you know, because there's only so much you can do on social media. Do you know what I mean? You need to support people in order to bring legislative change sometimes. So that might be funding lawyers or funding campaigns, you know, organising GoFundMe campaigns, because I think we need, you know, it's someone like that in Ghana. You know, we don't know the culture, we don't know, you know, we can't work in that space, but we can help support people that are working in that space. And if they need legal fees, if they need to bring a challenge or, you know, the equivalent of, you know, judicial review or some legislative changes, then they'll need money to kind of do that. So I would say, you know, giving money is probably the best way, really, so that they then can take the steps that they need to make those changes. I don't know the Lesbian Centre in Ghana. I'm going to look it up. I didn't know that. But, you know, I mean, distance is an issue because one of the things I do know, because I did a project based in Uganda where it's just horrendous what was happening and still happening. Even being suspected of being gay was enough to get you beaten up in the street or run out of the country. It was horrendous. So you don't really want to be reaching out to people and kind of like exposing them. Do you know what I mean? So social media is not necessarily the best way. I would say give money or give resources.
Fabulous. So we've got one last question from David Austin, and he's asked, is Black Pride involved in archival work?
Not as far as I know. Black Pride is mostly the celebration of Pride. Yeah, that's mostly, that's kind of what they're set up to do, you know, to be the biggest, you know, the biggest Black Pride in Europe. So right. They're doing enough.
Well, thank you so much, Vee. Those are all the questions that had come in through the chat, but obviously.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, brilliant.
I'll hand it back over to our Shelley.
Yeah, okay.
Hello, everybody.
our next presenter, Dr. Abtin Siddiqui, wasn't able to be with us today. As an NHS doctor, he has got a very full schedule. He is a recent member of the Schools Out committee and is a strong supporter of Outing the Past. So he has pre-recorded a 25-minute video for us on the subject of the LGBT community and the NHS. So I will just move across to that in a moment, and we will play his video. Thank you so much, Fee, for your questions. That was fabulous and informative. So let me find him. I do apologise, the joys of technology. Yeah, so I will share our screen, and then unfortunately we can't take questions for this presentation because our wonderful doctor is not with us. So we will go straight to his video.
Hello, my name's Abtin Siddiqui, and I'll be talking today about LGBT plus health and the NHS as part of the Out in the Past Festival of LGBT History. I'd like to start by introducing myself. I'm an anaesthetic doctor working for the NHS in northwest London, and a few months ago I started to work for a fantastic education charity called Schools Out UK. I'm not representing any organisation in this presentation, and I'd like to say that I'm not an expert in the area. However, I'm really interested in finding out more and more about LGBT health, and therefore I'm open to feedback and comments. This is a really large topic, and so I won't be able to cover everything, but I hope to highlight some of the more interesting or influential moments in history in the past 70 years. So I'll start right at the beginning of the NHS, just over 70 years ago, and then hopefully go through a timeline of LGBT plus healthcare since the NHS was formed until the present day. I'd also like to highlight some of the key LGBT health inequalities that are still present in today's society, and also talk about the impact of COVID on our community. I'll touch also upon the future, looking at some of the plans that the NHS and the government have in place. This gentleman is Aneurin Bevan, often thought of as the father of the NHS. He said that no society can legitimately call itself civilized if a sick person is denied medical aid because of lack of means. The NHS was created on the 5th of July 1948, and Park Hospital in Manchester was the first NHS hospital. It's now the Trafford General. The NHS was funded from general taxation and free at the point of use. And by the first day of launch, 94% of the public were enrolled. Over 70 years on, the founding principles remain intact, but how has the LGBT plus community been treated during this period? We'll start in the 1950s with Alan Turing. Many of you will recognize him as being one of the most influential code breakers of World War II, and he helped the Allies to win the war by cracking the Enigma codes. This incredible man was convicted in 1952 of sexual offences with men, and this was under the same gross indecency law that saw Oscar Wilde sent to prison in 1895. He was given the choice to either undergo hormonal castration or go to prison, and he chose to have hormonal treatment. He received monthly injections at Manchester Royal Infirmary with a drug containing the hormone estrogen. It wasn't until after his death that he was pardoned in 2013. Now, a number of treatments were administered to alter sexuality at this time, and many of them as part of the NHS. These included estrogen treatment, psychoanalysis, and religious counselling. In addition, electroconvulsive therapy was also used. A 2004 British Medical Journal study interviewed 29 people who'd received treatments to change their sexual orientation in the UK, and understandably showed that no participant showed any benefits, and for many it reinforced emotional isolation and shame. The study showed that patients either sought treatment themselves or were referred after discussion with GPs, teachers, or as an alternative to imprisonment. A further British Medical Journal study by the same group interviewed 30 healthcare professionals, 28 of which worked in the NHS, who had been involved in administering these treatments. These included psychiatrists, psychologists, a nurse specialist, and even an electrician who developed electric shock equipment. And some of the quotes that they've given really give an insight into these treatments. They say that they were often experimental in nature, with scant regard for efficacy or ethics. Aversion therapy with electric shocks was common. Treatments varied throughout the country without any general protocols or ethical guidelines. And interestingly, few lesbians received treatment. In 1993, the UK government finally removes homosexuality from its list of psychiatric disorders in England and Wales. And in 2014, the Royal College of Psychiatrists says clearly there is no sound scientific evidence that sexual orientation can be changed, and any studies that suggest that it can are seriously flawed. And although in the UK it's still not illegal to undergo or provide conversion therapy, it has been tackled as part of the government's LGBT action plan. And we'll discuss this further later. In 1965, a UK opinion poll found that 93% of people still felt that homosexuality was a form of illness requiring medical treatment. 1 year after this, the UK's first NHS gender clinic opened, and we'll talk a bit more about this later. And it's important to mention that in 1967, the sexual offence
There is no sound.
Yeah, sounds.
You need to share sound if you're not, because it was playing through your speakers. So when you mute, it mutes. You need to click the 3 buttons to the far end, and if there will be an option to share sound, you select that.
Going to start recording again. So we've had a few messages in about that wonderful video that Dr. Siddiqui sent through for us, which brought together so much information. So I will ask him if it's all right to share, and if it is, then I've got the email that you sent through, David, and I will also send it through to Carl Austin Behan to go on his newsletter. But first of all, obviously, I need to check that Dr. Siddiqui is happy for all of his hard work to be shared. So as we continue onwards with our day, I would like to say hello to everybody, and I hope that you are comfortably settled. We have one more presenter to share with you, and then we will be mentioning that we have one exciting event left in Stockport's LGBT History Month, and a massive shout out to Tina from Forward, who has been the brains and a lot of the determination behind this. She wanted an event for every day, and she ended up with 36. So, you know, she kind of just went one better and brought an amazing sort of amount of LGBT activities and events to Stockport. One of the few advantages of this strange COVID world is we have got Zoom, so we are able to join with people from far and wide. So that's very lovely, and hello to everybody who has joined us from outside the wonders of Stockport. Our last amazing speaker, who we had the pleasure and privilege of sharing an open mic poetry with last night, is our LGBT plus poet laureate, Trudy Howson, who is going to share a little bit of her life from the 70s through to today with poetry and personal recollection. So over to you, Trudy, with a warm welcome and thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and it's been terrific fun. And of course, so essential that we do remember who came before us and paved the way for us, which gives us the strength and hope that we can also make the world, our world, a better place for other people when they move on into the future. So I'm going to be talking about my life and my recollection, a little about me. I was born in a very small mill town in Lancashire in 1954, which of course was the year that Alan Turing died, killed himself, it's thought, because of his horrific treatment. And I must say that it was a very depressed place. It wasn't just homophobic, it was also very racist. And a lot of the Bangladesh families that came to work in those mills suffered a great deal of harassment. I was fortunate that I had befriended a very lovely girl called, we call it Roxana, and she showed me a lot about what happened to anyone who was slightly different. During the whole of my time in Lancashire, I never met any gay person. You wouldn't dare say that you were gay. People had to be very careful. I think poverty can make people brutal. And I suppose that I just thought I was stuck there. I was very confused. And then out of the blue, I was offered a scholarship to go and study dance and drama in London. And that really did, full bursary, change my life. But I'm going to read a poem that was written about 1966, about my first coming out experience, because of course I was still struggling to, establish some kind of gay relationship in Great Harwood, difficult though it was. As we know, coming out stories, we've all got them. We've all got lots of them because we come out so many times in our life. When you get a new job, when you meet a new group of friends. So this is my first coming out story. And I'm sure, and I made it into a poem, and I'm sure we all have one. Mine's called Coming Out Kiss. It was that kiss that did it. Blew away my misconceptions about lads, about fancying them, that is, about wanting to be their girlfriend. Tracy was trouble with a capital T. Tall, tempestuous, a truant and a tease. She cut a swathe through all the boys, discarded them like broken toys. I was 12, she was 16. And a walking, talking, living dream. I was bored with secondary school. I preferred dancing and playing the fool. On that day, she noticed me, said she'd teach me how to be a femme fatale like she was. The first lesson was kissing. And I never looked back, frankly, after that. That was it. I knew. Thank you. So then heaven arrived at my doorstep and I was offered the opportunity to move to London from Lancashire and study at a drama school. And although I hadn't met any gay people in Great Harwood, I was absolutely certain that I would meet some when I went down to London. And this is a poem I wrote about arriving in London in 1972 and meeting up with other people like me who'd gone from small little places to study at a university or college. It's called The Way We Were. Newly arrived in London, seeking fame, fortune, friendship, and the kind of sex we couldn't find in our small towns and villages. we were ravenous, wanted to grab life by the throat or fall in and be overwhelmed by it, grow into ourselves. We were gagging for it, brimming with fear and excitement, impatient for a brand new life of our own making. We took courses, loitered in clubs, pubs and places, hoping to meet a bona fide homosexual or become one. We marched together on streets paved with hope and wonder, held hands at Greenham, shouted, made love as much as possible, the way we were. We thought would never change or end. Now, the way we are today will tomorrow's history amend. So the 1970s was a very, very exciting time. I mean, I just became very politically active during that period. I joined the women's liberation movement, which changed the course of history, I'd say. I started working for organizations like GLF, Campaign for Homosexual Equality, Rock Against Racism. I have to say that I was always the entertainer, writing poems for them, what they were doing or performing and fundraising. That was sort of my style, being a sort of drama person, but it was an absolute blast because of course we hit the clubs, and the clubs during that time, they were called, it was the Gateways Club, Shagaramas, and it was to Ace of Clubs, Robin Hood, all those bars, heaven. So we had an absolute blast and we danced the night away. And this is a poem I wrote celebrating that period of history. It's called Queeropolis. And what it's about what it's like moving from Great Harwood to London. Fantastic. We are the heart of this fair city, forming its breadth and length. We sprinkle it with fairy dust, empower it with our strength. Welcome to Funopolis. Every type of us lives here. This city is great if you're a queer. The range and span of woman and man living without fear. Welcome to Diversopolis. From the bottom to the top, kinky, winky, romantic or not, as big as imagination is. Our lives are truly hot. Welcome to Sexopolis. So tonight is party time. A chance to flirt and dance, cast off the old, begin the new, salutations to love and romance. Welcome to Queeropolis. And dance we did until I'd say it was the early 80s. And suddenly we were all trying to work on different organizations. And during that period, I got to know a huge amount of gay men and women and every type of LGBT person. And suddenly we started to notice that people had stopped going to the clubs. People were disappearing. Our friends were getting sick. People were having to move back home and live with their family again, even though they give up their jobs, give up their flats. People started to die. It was the AIDS epidemic, and I must say it was absolutely horrifying and frightening. And we were trying to really, I remember there were groups of us who were nurses or doctors or social workers, women, and we were obviously supporting our brothers, our friends who were blighted by this terrible, terrible sickness. And this is a poem that I wrote about that period. The name strikes dread into our heart. We know what its impact can be. We've seen the worst and best of it, its devastation of our community. In the hedonistic excess of the 80s, we saw our playmates falter and fall. Their fluids turned into Hades River, some swept away, some not at all. The randomness of the infection, the suspicion, ignorance, and fear, our family, friends, and lovers blamed just because they were queer. Investment in medical research stopped this killer in its tracks. The afflicted now can live a life improved by treatment and facts. We honor our brothers and sisters who didn't survive that fight. We salute and support the survivors whose lives turned out all right. Let us celebrate our lives today, and those whose lives has passed. Embrace our loving community. May it prosper, flourish, and last. I think that the AIDS virus, thank you. I think that the AIDS virus, one thing it taught us was that we have to stick together. That when the push came to the shove, everyone wanted to blame someone, and we were that group. And I think that organizations like the Terence Higgins Trust and Switchboard, also set up during that period, and Chris Smith came out as an openly gay MP. And of course, we started to challenge Clause 28, which would have been catastrophic. Well, it was. It meant that people were afraid to come out if they were teachers. Lots of jobs people were still afraid. Hairdressers, masseurs, if you worked in any kind of service employment. So we had to stop that clause. And Sue Sanders and Lisa Powers and a group of other people, Ian McKellen, they really stood up and were counted. And we did manage to get that clause repealed in 2003. And this is a poem that I wrote to work with children. It was for children aged 10 till 13. And this is it. It's called Shout Out. Stereotypes are boring. Stereotypes feel tight. What's the point of squashing into something that doesn't feel right? It's okay to be different. It's okay to be queer. We're all the same just under our skin. We deserve to live without fear. Bullies are pathetic. Bullies are uncool. If they think hate can make it right, they really are the fool. Just relax and be yourself. Don't worry what people say. Be the person you want to be. Non-binary, straight, trans, bi, or gay. So during this period, I was also working as a commercial actress, and I was almost at a conflict because I was doing political agitprop, I was working with Gay Sweatshop, I was doing lots of political activism, but I was also doing, telly stuff like Coronation Street and World's End. And the way that women were treated in that industry was really very shabby. So as a feminist and as a lesbian, I just couldn't continue doing that kind of work. So I started really concentrating on writing poetry and touring a lot in Southeast Asia, working, performing in festivals and in England. But what happened in 2012 to me was that I was invited to write a poem for the London Olympics. And that completely changed my professional profile as a poet. And I realized I had to make a decision. And my decision was that I wanted to write poetry and support the community that I love. So I decided to try to help to develop the LGBT poetry scene in London, which was very well, sort of non-existent. So that's what I started to do. But I realized also that poetry is an immense tool to work with politically. It can be a catalyst for social and political change, as well as actually having a personal, spiritual and emotional resonance. And I found that politically the best way to work around it was often through humor. And in 2014, President Putin announced that there were going to be no homosexuals allowed at the Russian Olympics. And I felt, as a person who'd written a poem for the London Olympics, I should definitely make a comment. So I staged an event with Vince Laws called To Russia with Love Party at the Kuba. And it was a fantastic success. We had great acts, and it was filmed for Channel 4. It must have been a really quiet night on the news, but we made the news. And this was the poem that I wrote. You can't take the gay out of games, Mr. Putin. There are too many of us about. The ones in your team will be winning you medals rather than struggling to come out. You can't keep us out of Russia. You see, we're a part of real life. For we are your sons and daughters, comrades, husband and wife. It's our hands that rock the cradle. It's our cash that keeps Russia afloat. So you better wise up to pink politics, or you might find you lose our vote. Your games will be flooded with queer athletes. The world will be sending its best. Your audience will be filled with homosexuals cheering along with the rest. The world is watching, Mr. Putin, and it's filled with homosexuals like me. So change your policy, up your game, or an international laughing stock be. I don't think it went down well in Russia, I can tell you. Though I think they've forgiven me, because these days I seem to do quite a lot for Russian TV. So the next thing that happened was that I was running lots of residencies in central London, where I was promoting the work of LGBT artists. Because let's face it, our community, we are an absolute treasure trove of interest and amazement. And so LGBT poetry was becoming very popular. And during this period in 2016, I was appointed LGBT Poet Laureate. They created the appointment for me, and truly it is a huge, huge honor. And also, and responsibility. I am officially a servant of our community, which I'm very happy about. But it did mean that within that post, I have access to a lot of big, high echelon, political echelons, big campaigns, can really use my work to actually make a change in the quality of life for our community. So I wrote a poem in 2016, which was actually broadcast live on Sky TV network, UK network, which was the first poem, LGBT poem ever done on live TV. And I just wanted to make it really clear, without beating around the bush too much, that we're all special. We're special, and we're no different than anyone else. So the poem was called Ida Hot, but of course now it's called Ida Hobbit, that period. I'm your brother and sister. I'm both Mrs. and Mr. I'm lesbian, gay, trans, queer. I am myself. I'm your father and mother, uncle, auntie, friend and lover. I'm different and the same. I am your family. I'm black, white, pink, every hue, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Jew, skinhead, goth, punk, new romantic. I am me, I am you. I'm your nurse, your teacher, the boy and girl next door, someone in your street. I am your neighbor. I'm no better or worse, no richer, poorer, blessed or cursed, just part of the same gravitational wave as you are. So I found through poetry that it cut through a lot of the academic, a lot of the academic piles and piles of paperwork, and it could actually either have a resonance in someone's heart, or it could make someone think about a situation in a different way. The Metropolitan Police put that poem on their website, and I was hoping to change the hearts and minds in the way that they treat our community. So the other thing that I've been doing of late as a poet is I've been writing lots of poems for different UK prides. I get commissioned. I do lots of commissions for big organisations, small organisations, grassroots organisations. I love doing commissions, and I particularly love going around the country doing the UK prides, which is absolutely fabulous. So this was a poem that I was commissioned to write for one of the prides, and actually I believe the title's Hero, and I believe that we all have a hero inside of us, and it's just about nurturing it and recognizing it. So this is a poem for every single one of us. Hero. I'm Batman, I'm Wonder Woman, I'm a superhero called gay. I'm lesbian, trans, bi-fluid, queer, and I'm a hero every day. I'm Mari Stopes, I'm Nelson Mandela. I'm not afraid of a fight. I'm standing up for equality and justice because I know what's wrong and what's right. I'm labeled with love and loathing. Sometimes I feel afraid. Then I take solace from my fabulous friends on the gender bender cavalcade. Zorro, Emily Pankhurst, Muhammad Ali. There's a hero within us all. We can make a difference every day. Be proud, sing out, walk tall. Thank you. And this is my last poem, and this is a poem I wrote actually for London Pride, and I just thought the title of the theme title was so wonderful. The theme title for that year, I think it was two years ago, was Love Happens Here, and I think that's what we just need to hang on to in our community, that it is a place where love happens. Of course, we have disagreements, but we have to try to keep an open heart. And in this theme of body, mind, and spirit, I would say that let's keep our hearts open to each other and support each other. So this is the poem, Love Happens Here. And it's for us, it's happening here. Love happens here, in family, LGBT, in our relationships, far and near. It's the heart of us and we. Love can be enough, in sunshine or in showers. When the going gets tough, it's love that empowers. Love is our diversity. It's the best that we can be. It's the talent and creativity within our community. Love is you and me. We show it in a smile, in our endeavor and tenacity, in our fabulosa style. Thank you so much. Thank you. So if anyone wants to ask me any, oh, yes, I can see. Oh. Oh. Well, I'm glad I'm giving you goosebumps. That's good fun, isn't it, on a Saturday?
thank you so much for that, Trudy.
Thank you.
It's such an amazing way to finish off our Outing the Past festival today. A very uplifting and positive message in times that are difficult for all of us, and I think it leaves us with a deep sense of connection that we are very much missing at the moment. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
We did post your details in the chat before. So if anybody does want to get in touch with Trudy, then you do have a website and you are on Twitter.
Oh yes,
so
my tweethearts. I'm an LGBT poet laureate without the E at the end, because too many letters. But yes, please be my tweethearts. I love Twitter.
Yes, so the wonderful Sarah has just posted your details in the chat again. So your email, your website and your Twitter are there if anybody would like to connect with you after this event and share more of your wonderful work. I'm handing over to Sarah. I'm not spotting any questions at the moment for Trudy. Is anybody, am I missing something?
There was the question about how people can find and share more of your poetry. So hopefully they can find it there in your links. But I actually have a question, if that's okay.
Good, Sarah.
So when you were talking about your poem to Putin about the Russian Olympics, it made me wonder if you could have an ideal platform or event in which you could stand and read your poetry to the world. Like, do you have a dream like place or person or something that you'd like to speak out to if you had the opportunity?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm in the very fortunate position where my poetry is being used for cross-party debates in Parliament. So, you know, I mean, that is the platform that every political activist would dream, because actually a poem is just one sheet of paper. You know, these politicians, as we know, have masses and masses of stuff to read. And the thing about poetry, it's like a cordial. So you can say an awful lot of stuff just on one A4 sheet. So yes, I'm absolutely thrilled about the opportunity that I've been given to support our community. I mean, I'm just one of those people. I'm fortunate that I'm doing a job that I love, making a sort of living. And yes, doing it.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Really lovely to see. I can see you all up.
So I'll hand it back to Shelley now.
So yes, a very wonderful and warm ending to our Outing the Past festival. If you would like to share more celebration and wonderfulness with us, then we have one Stockport LGBT History Month event left. Tomorrow, Sunday from 2 till 4, we have the grand finale with local LGBT plus talent sharing their stuff on screen. So if you can take any more of Zoom, it would be lovely to have you join us there. And we're just posting the link in the chat for you to get your free ticket. And as is the way with all of these events, we really value your feedback. And apologies here, we have 2 surveys. So first of all, we have the Outing the Past survey, and they would like to know how you felt this went, including the Zoom skills of the host. And after that, we have our own personal Stockport survey. If you could please take a couple of minutes out of your time to fill those in for us. It is so important that we build a picture of the future and moving forwards, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and what you'd like more of. Has anybody got any last thoughts that they would like to share? Or are we saying thank you so much for being here? Thank you for your time, your skills, your talent, and just generally being that face, that smiling face on the screen. Anybody, any last thoughts? Oh, Tina has a thought. Go, Tina.
Just a huge thank you to Shelley for organising, to Trudy, to Veronica, and obviously Dr. Sadidi, who's not here. But yeah, just huge thank you, and a huge thank you to Outing the Past and to LGBT History Month, to Kate, to Sue, who couldn't be here, to everyone for coming along, and for everyone who's come along to all of our events so far. It's been an incredible month, and you know, we couldn't have done it without the people who've turned up to the events and the people who've contributed and performed. And I'm just, my heart is just, my cup runneth over, absolutely full. Just huge thank you to everyone.
Yeah, so we will be signing out now. Oh, thank you. There's some positive feedback coming in, and we've just posted up the Warren's details for their online shop. As I was showing my wondrous LGBT rainbow coaster before, so so that's all on there. So take care, everybody. I hope we might see a couple of you tomorrow at our finale. And yes, it has been wonderful. So yeah, fill in those surveys for us, please, and we will see you sort of soon, or yes, in our world. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, Danica, can I just click onto one of these surveys now?
You can do it. Go for it.
Oh, just getting IT advice from my techie princess.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to stand a little bit longer so people can get to the surveys. Your technical skills are coming on in leaps and bounds, Trudy.
She's sitting just on my left.
Hi. Yes, the wondrous supporter. Yes, your backstop in all things technical.
Thank goodness for that. You probably wouldn't see me dust otherwise. Right, I'm going to do this. You don't have to be on Zoom. So shall I come off Zoom? Thank you, really lovely. Well done. I hope to see you in the flesh next year.
Au revoir. Yes, yeah, that would be lovely.
Yeah, bye, darling. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye. Really fun. Lovely. Bye.
So
hello.
Hello.
Save chat. I'm going to download that now.
Wonderful, thank you. I have recently discovered how, but I think you're better.
I've done that. I can email it to you.
How yesterday's poetry event, Trudy's asked if I can, which we recorded. Do you know where the recording's saved so I can send it to her? And today's.